Hey there YouTubers, right, so in this video we're going to take a look at some B660 motherboards, looking at the low end, kind of the mid-range, and then the higher end ones, and what I have been eyeing myself, what potentially I would recommend. Maybe one or two of these I actually own or will own, as you will see on this channel. So this is probably more useful to some people that live in the U.S. than it would be to those of you in other countries. Why is that? If you don't have access to these websites where the pricing might be different or they don't offer the same product lines. So Newegg, I know when I was overseas at different times, it was a little more difficult to purchase stuff from them. Amazon, everybody's got Amazon as far as I know, but the prices may change obviously. And then eBay. Those are the three sites we're going to look at in this video. So on the very lowest end of B660 that I would recommend, and there are cheaper ones out there, I would say this MSI Pro B660M-P. So what do I like about it? I think I like the fact this one has 4 RAM slots. Now, you could end up with a cheaper B660 and end up with 2 RAM slots. Other things I like on the I/O side, this one actually has a Type-C Charlie connector. Don't really care for PS2 or the fact it has VGA, but those two things are decent. This is not a motherboard that I would recommend for the i9 or the i7 or for a CPU that you could overclock if you put it in a Z690, all right? So, but for $99, this is pretty good. $5 less, you could get almost the same thing, but with 2 RAM slots. And then ASRock has an even cheaper one out there. Now, also looking at quality, folks. I have owned plenty of ASRock motherboards, and you'll see a lot of times I buy those, right? Why do I buy them? Because we don't have a huge budget on this channel, and they are usually pretty cheap. What I don't like from them is we're going to be going to 13th gen. They may just drop the ball on their support as far as BIOS revisions go. I honestly see a lot of their motherboards. They do not seem to do as many BIOS updates as a comparative one from Gigabyte, Asus, or MSI. All right, so factoring into this better quality motherboards is definitely a decision in this. But all right, so to move on, $99 for this one, not too bad. You may see it on the channel at some point. You may have seen variations of this one. Cheapest motherboard that I could find that had Wi-Fi that I liked. There is a Gigabyte one out there very similar to this, but a couple things I did not like about that one. But let's talk about why I like this one. Obviously, Wi-Fi, $129. Look at all these expansion slots, folks. What do we got? 4 of them? I mean, full size expansion slots. I didn't count how many of them were PCIe 4.0. Obviously, this one at the top is, and there's probably another one in here as well. 4 RAM slots, Wi-Fi, right? So, what does it cost you to buy a PCI Wi-Fi card? $17, $25, you know, on the low end. Maybe you spend $35, $40. This is definitely a big upgrade from the other one. I also really like the Wi-Fi antenna for the most part. If I got it, maybe I wouldn't like it, but it looks a hell of a lot more stable than the ones you usually get. And if you don't get the one that has a magnet in it, and that'll stick to your case, then you know, things falling over all the time, easy to knock over. But yeah, overall, folks, this is a pretty solid motherboard. They don't give you a side view here. And I can't necessarily see if this has my Type-C on it that I like, but you know, good selection of video outs. Looks like you've got 3 total there, so that is that's pretty huge there. Can't necessarily see that good on the motherboard. all the other connectors, but there is a Type-C Charlie header there, so that's good. You've got USB 3.0 and then USB 2.0. So very solid motherboard for $129. You may just see this one on the channel at some point. All right. Now, moving on to kind of the intermediate range. This is you know, the best deal I would say out there for a B660M. Now, obviously a lot of comparative stuff to that last one, and I had a Gaming X on the channel, the full size. I really liked it. You know, just kind of looks like the Aris ones, but not quite as nice, right? 4 RAM slots. If for whatever reason you needed more PCI expansion slots, you know, maybe this one isn't for you, but there are 2 of them on here. Beefy heat sinks on this, and this is a motherboard that I would feel comfortable with a i7, i9 on it. Even the CPUs that you can overclock, which you won't be able to do on here, but this still makes for a good motherboard as far as that goes. Now this one does only have, you know, 2 M.2 spots, if that matters. And then if we look at the side, folks, nothing super spectacular here, but you do have Wi-Fi. You do have a built-in I/O shield, which is very important to me. Obviously Ethernet 2.5 here, but just a very solidly built motherboard. All right, I think you'd be pretty happy with this. Very similar, in my opinion, to the Asus TUF Gaming B660M, which is usually anywhere from $20 to $30 more than this. Moving on. So kind of the we're getting into the higher end here, folks. But this is the higher end, I would say, of the B660Ms out there, that DDR4 that I liked. This guy, let's blow up the picture. Very similar to what we just looked at, right? But it does have the Aris name on it. Pretty much everything we talked about here is the same. And then you've got this, once again, beefy heat sinks on here. This is a DDR5 version though, right? According to that box. The description says DDR4. Amazon gets confusing, as you know what, but so somewhat of the same connections, but what I really like about this, fiber optic, right? Love the aspect of being able to hook my computer up to my surround sound system via that. Type-C Charlie, so some of the stuff that the other motherboard was missing out on, this one has, and it obviously has Wi-Fi. For me, $20 more on this one is well worth it. For you, it may not be. Now, the only real question, is this one really DDR4 or DDR5? If it is DDR5, then, you know, obviously the RAM's going to be more expensive, but this one is a very solid motherboard. Definitely one of the better, I believe, B660Ms, micro ATX. Moving on. So there are obviously much more expensive motherboards out there, and we'll take a look at one in here in a second. But for a full-size ATX, another $20 more than what we just looked at. I really like this motherboard. So basically you're adding one more expansion slot, maybe a few more connections here and there. Everything else pretty similar. This one is DDR4, which makes it, as far as full-size ATX goes, for a B660 full ATX, the best one I personally would look at. Going beyond this, I don't think is necessary. This has, you know, even more audio connections, right? It's got my fiber optic out, USB Type C. Now, if I wanted a full-size motherboard, then this one would be the way to go. Spending another $20. Plus, it's sharp, has the RGB lighting. Very nice motherboard. So, before we look at the next motherboard, I don't know if you guys have checked out this guy's site. Certain B660s that are DDR5 have the ability to actually overclock a locked CPU, right? And that brings up, honestly, what my personal favorite motherboard is for the money. Now, does it make a lot of sense to buy a locked CPU and then buy this motherboard? Not necessarily. You potentially could obviously get a unlocked CPU and buy a Z690. Maybe it's a better price, maybe it isn't. For somebody like myself that has a bunch of locked CPUs, to include i5s, i7, i9s, the i3, Celeron, Pentium, assuming I can actually adjust the base clock frequency on this thing, this would be another good motherboard to get. Now, will this make it onto the channel? There's a good chance it will, alright? So, what you haven't seen in here is any recommendations on ITX, B660i. I had one on the channel that I did not necessarily really care for. And to be honest with you, your best bet, folks, is to skip the B660 chipset and just go with this Z690i Aorus Ultra. This is DDR5, but this is a pretty solid motherboard indeed, and you may see it on the channel here eventually. Thanks for checking out the video. Please like, please subscribe. Thank you.